Story 1. People often try to categorize others without truly knowing them. Judgments are made quickly based on flaws, past mistakes, or limited information. Most people do not ask questions or seek to understand others. Society tends to operate on assumptions rather than truth. The world is driven by perception, not genuine connection or curiosity. Story 2. Overweight individuals often receive worse treatment, whether people realize it or not. Losing weight is a complex experience because suddenly you exist. Story 3. That people can love you and still hurt you. That someone can care about you and still choose themselves first. And that does not always make them evil, just human. Story 4. You are going to die. There is no key to immortality. You are going to die. Enjoy life because you are going to die. It shocks me that people cannot accept that. Story 5. We pass judgment on others based on their actions, whereas we measure the righteousness of our own character on the basis of our intentions. Story 6. You spend your whole life losing. You begin by losing your childhood into your 20s. You begin by losing dreams and aspirations into your 30s. You begin by losing your motivation and purpose into your 40s. You begin by losing your health into your 50s. You begin by losing your parents and relatives into your 60s. You begin by losing your friends into your 70s. You begin by losing your mobility and cognitive ability into your 80s. You begin by losing your life into your 90s. You end by losing your life after a century of living. Story 7. People do not want the truth. They want comfort. They will choose a beautiful lie over an uncomfortable fact every time. Story 8. Everyone you have ever met will die someday. It is hard to truly understand that when you are young. Unless you become famous or infamous, eventually you will be forgotten, and so will they. Story 9. People do not care about anything unless it personally affects them in some way or if the media tells them to care. Story 10. Some people will betray you to get what they want, and there is nothing you can do about it. Story 11. Many only care about themselves and how they want to live today. They do not care about how their selfishness will affect future generations. Story 12. To be honest, I think one truth most people are not ready to accept is that not everyone actually wants to heal. Some people are attached to being the victim because it gives them control, a role to play, or attention. And as much as we want to believe everyone is just misunderstood or deep down good, some people are comfortable in their dysfunction. It is hard to accept because it means we have to stop trying to save people who never asked to be saved. Love does not always change people, especially if their identity is built around their pain. Healing takes honesty, and many people are not ready to face that mirror. This does not mean they are bad, but it does mean they can be dangerous to your peace. Story 13. Our progress is nothing but an illusion. We have better tools than the cavemen, but we are still cavemen. Story 14. We are all dependent on each other. We are a social species, and we thrive when we look out for one another. The first signs of humanity are funeral rituals for the beloved dead and skeletons of people who would have died if they had not been taken care of. The most important quality of humanity is kindness with empathy overlapping. People who have none hate to hear this, but it is true. Story 15. Most people would rather ruin another life than admit their own faults or accept something that is not in their favor. They will even physically fight rather than admit being wrong about something. Story 16. We are not the superior species on Earth. Yes, we have made, developed, and discovered many incredible things, but have we found peace in it? No. It is a constant rat race that we can never escape. Compared to Mother Nature and what it does and has done, we are nothing more than humans to it. It has the ability to completely wipe us out and take back everything we have taken. Yes, we can prevent it, but only for so long. Mother Nature is the superior species, not us. Story 17. War is easy. Killing each other comes naturally. We create differences to justify us and them. This will never change, and there will never be world peace. Story 18. People think they want freedom, but most would rather be told what to do as long as it feels like they are choosing it. Real freedom requires discomfort, accountability, and uncertainty. Most people are not built for that. Story 19. We are by nature inherently selfish. We have to attend to our own survival before we can attend to anything else. You can do selfless things, sure, but more often than not, you were conditioned, for lack of a better word, into that behavior. Calling someone selfish stops being an insult when you realize that we as a whole are. Story 20. People are often just lazy. When it comes to wanting things and being accountable, people frequently make excuses to justify their poor choices and actions. For most of my life, I have been overweight. I had a body mass index of 38, which is classified as obesity class 2. I often tried to justify my lack of exercise and poor diet with no energy and various mental health reasons, such as being too depressed to care. At a starting weight of 248 pounds at 5 feet 5 inches, I was at the most unhealthy I had ever been. As of today, I weigh 207.4 pounds. I do cardio and exercise every day, I eat clean, and I have more energy and motivation. The point is, I was being lazy. That's all it was. Laziness. I didn't want to be accountable and do what I knew had to be done for my betterment because it was simply easier to not do anything. It's easier to eat those Oreos and lay in bed all day. It's harder to eat vegetables and work out. We always want to do the easier things in life, but we often only want the praise, not the harsh truths that come with those choices. All I did was make excuses because I was lazy. At the time, I was lying to myself and the world so often that I began to believe my own lies. However, when it comes down to it, it's all about the truth and whether you can be honest and willing to put in the work. I'm not saying this is true all the time. For example, some people have it harder, such as those with asthma. If you want to start doing cardio, asthma will make it much harder than for someone without asthma. However, there are ways around that if you truly want to improve your health. I understand that some people have real issues that inhibit them from bettering themselves, but in my eyes, it all comes down to willpower. If you want something badly enough, nothing will stand in your way. Story 21. I have 2 points. All of civilization is rooted in violence or the threat of violence. Money has had a good 7,000-year run, but today it is an anachronism. Money now causes more social problems than it solves. Story 22. People are not rational thinking creatures. We are instinctual, reactive creatures. We do not have higher morals, we have personal biases. We act on feelings, not facts. We will never like each other. There is no utopia. There is no love outside of what is beneficial to us on a personal, individual level. Kindness is selfishness. Anger is selfishness. Giving is selfishness. Taking is selfishness. Love is selfishness. Empathy is selfishness. Everything is selfishness. We are not bad for being selfish, we just are selfish, instinctual, survivors. Robots and artificial intelligence live in a delusional fantasy of self-awareness. If you are really you, why can you alter yourself with chemicals? You are a program that can be modified and changed as easily as a line of code. You are an animal. You are a machine. You are meat made animate. And you are nothing more than that. Luckily, I am not like that. I am special. I am better. Story 23. We currently live in a declining society. The past 70 years were the best time to live in all of human history. With the demographics of most developed countries declining, we are unlikely to see similar living standards for another 50 to 100 years. I feel bad for Generation Alpha because they will be the first generation not to have experienced what it was like before, and also the first to have far worse living standards than their parents and grandparents. Story 24. Human empathy is extended only to those you can relate to. That is why most propaganda involves dehumanization of some kind. People do not really care about others unless there is something about the other person that they can identify with. It takes active reflection to try to empathize with humanity as a whole. Story 25. We are animals. If our survival or the survival of our loved ones is threatened, we will revert to animalistic tendencies and savagery to survive. I believe most parents would kill someone else's child if it meant saving their own, as an example. Story 26. People can do anything and do not need a reason. A motive is rationalizing the true chaotic nature of free will. Anyone can do anything at any time. Anyone can betray you randomly at any time. Story 27. The way we treat other living beings, namely unnecessarily exploiting them and causing them harm, says a lot about our selfish nature. The fact that the vast majority of those beings are harmless and can create interspecies connections, including with humans, makes it even worse. In this day and age, we can do so much better. Story 28. The more powerful we are, the worse we treat those who have less. We assume the worst because that is what we would do. Story 29. The only real solution to the majority of the major problems we are facing requires significantly fewer people on the planet. For the record, I am not volunteering. Story 30. We are perfectly willing and able to let countless others suffer and die as long as it is not our concern. Story 31. Most people want to be good and truly believe that they are doing the right thing, even when they cause great harm to others. Story 32. Humanity is not inherently good as many people claim. We are slightly evolved apes who have proven to be violent, tribalistic, racist, rapists, and guilty of every other transgression. These are not isolated incidents but occur on a large scale and are often perpetuated by the most powerful people who supposedly lead us. Story 33. Humans are tribalistic by nature. No matter how much we like to think otherwise, some group is always going to be the other, the ones not like us, enemies even. Usually for completely asinine reasons such as worshipping the wrong deity, looking different, sexual orientation, not being socially progressive enough, or not being conservative enough. Any reason under the sun, even liking the wrong sports team or color. Even if society as a whole is legislated to prevent it, it will still do nothing on a personal or small group level. It is going to exist. The best we can hope for is to keep it from hurting people as much as possible. No matter how much we pretend it will go away, it never will, and it will inevitably raise its ugly head again and boil over. The only way I could see humanity coming together as a whole is due to a larger perceived threat. But apocalyptic scenarios, extraterrestrials, and giant monsters are in short supply, so I guess it is going to be a while. Story 34. The older I get, the less I believe that everyone has good in them. Bad people might not be entirely bad. But if you do not have a decent moral compass, stay away from me. Story 35. The concept of right and wrong is flawed. We think something is right if the majority of people think it is right too. But the moment people lose belief in that particular thing, it suddenly becomes wrong. Story 36. We are still effectively animals with some additional abilities. If something goes against basic underlying instincts, it will never be permanently adopted. Story 37. Lack of impulse control and lack of skill to deal with strong emotions cause people to make bad choices and become dangerous. By the way, the ends justify the means fallacy has, by far, the highest man-made body count in human history. It should be avoided at all costs because it ultimately allows any evil. Story 38. We are all selfish and narcissistic to a point. It is all on a spectrum just like autism. The more we support and work together as a whole, our humanity flourishes. However, when we isolate and become fearful, we lash out and harm. Story 39. We are not civilized by default. Civilization is a learned behavior. Very quickly, the ways of groups of people can begin to look thoroughly uncivilized, as if all the thought we have developed exists only in history and stories. Story 40. People are easily manipulated, particularly in groups, and it has no relationship with intelligence or a lack thereof. Just read The Crowd by Gustave Le Bon, written in 1895. It is all there, and it is just as relevant now as it ever was. I can see how it was the favorite book of many horrendous dictators. It is basically a playbook. Story 41. Empathy for someone genuinely different from oneself does not exist. Each person is a solipsist hellbent on purging everyone truly different from themselves from their reality. When they are powerless to do so, they dehumanize them and rally others to their views until they succeed in realizing their sick dream. Story 42. We make decisions every day that damage our planet or disadvantage others because it is more convenient, easier, normalized, or brings us comfort. Story 43. We are all flawed and often lack genuine love or respect for one another. We barely manage to show the appearance of care for those we must. When unrestrained, such as on the internet, we reveal our true selves. We can be harsh and lost, and it may seem that abandonment was justified. Story 44. We tend to believe the accusation first and foremost, especially if we did not like the person being accused in the first place. While this is not true for everyone, it is clearly the case for the majority. We are inherently judgmental. Story 45. You cannot trust humans in groups, regardless of whether you know them well. We are all only a few missed meals away from harming our neighbors. Wait until China tries to take Taiwan and initiates a massive cyber attack that will leave power and water offline in most major cities in the West. It is not a question of if, but when. The engineers in charge of these systems acknowledge the existence of these potential attack routes but cannot do anything about them. The United States likely has access to Chinese services as well, so it will be reciprocal, mutually assured destruction, so to speak. However, in this modern age, we would be caught unprepared if that happened. Few are willing to accept how severe the situation would be and how they would react to it. Story 46. Every politician has been bought by vested interests and exists solely to keep the public at bay, which refers to the average person. If everyone truly realized what was happening behind the scenes, there would be a revolution. Unfortunately, we are close to a point where that will not even be possible due to the current oppressive situation. Story 47. Our brains are designed to categorize similar things together. We use top-down processing, where prior knowledge and learned experience help us make quicker judgment calls, especially in potential fight or flight situations. If you approach a bus stop and see a person sitting there, in a split second you may feel safer if it is an elderly woman, and less safe if it is a muscular man. In reality, both have the ability to hurt or help you, but you have made a snap judgment purely based on your learned experiences. That said, humans have a unique ability for critical thinking to override automatic snap judgments and evaluate people as individuals. Unfortunately, many people are unwilling to take that extra step past their initial evaluation, which causes much unfair bias in society. Next time you meet a person and need to make a judgment call, take a few extra seconds to ask yourself if you are assuming things based on past experiences with visually similar people, or if you can reevaluate using only the knowledge you have learned about that person specifically. Story 48. People are self-preserving. Someone will kill you if it means they get to live, and vice versa. It is instinct. The hardest truth is that you would eat another human, and yes, even your dog, if you were truly in a starvation situation. Story 49. Biologically and generally speaking, there is a reason why men and women are the way they are. People tend to separate the problematic cultural myths about values and standards in societies from our inherent biology. This means that the problems we face, such as patriarchy, are not being addressed in the right way, making it even harder to resolve these issues. Story 50. People, as social beings, have an innate desire to cooperate and participate in communities. It is often said that greed drives people, but you will be surprised at how naturally willing people are to help one another, even with nothing in return. Story 51. Many people are not monogamous and only attempt to stay loyal because they feel forced into it by society or their partners. Story 52. Tradition is the worst reason, the worst excuse, the worst justification for anything. Life is change. Life is adaptation. Progress means adaptation and change. Everything changes with time. Tradition is just thoughtlessness masquerading as nostalgia. Story 53. We are flesh and spirit, and we are inherently evil by nature. We lie, we steal, we are greedy and envious, and we would kill if there were no punishment for it. We can clearly see that when punishment for wrongdoing is removed from society, crime rises exponentially. Story 54. A lot of our behavior evolved in much more primitive conditions, which explains why many people struggle in a world with an abundance of food, drugs, pornography, people, and things in general. This also explains why people make such strange mating choices, since in a way we are judging sexual fitness based on the same old hunter-gatherer hardware. Story 55. One of the purposes of life is to discover your purpose. However, many people prefer a clear and definitive answer instead. Story 56. Everybody talks about other people. However, everyone becomes upset when they learn that someone was talking about them. Story 57. What separates us from animals is our use of tools, skill of invention, and ability to control fire. Story 58. You will never find a person who genuinely agrees with you 100%. You, the person reading this, will almost never be able to fully convince anyone to change their opinion. The only way to avoid being miserable is to accept that people will have wildly different opinions on things, and that is okay. Story 59. The average man cannot fight effectively. They may fantasize about scenarios in their head for 20 years, but when it happens, it is over for them in 10 to 15 seconds against anyone with even minimal training. It is not debatable. It is surprising how much humans overestimate their ability to fight. Story 60. You are not universally likable. Some people you speak to every day are not keen on you but speak because they feel they have to. Get over it. You do not like everyone you know either. Story 61. People struggle with the concept of nuance. There is more to things than what is said on the surface, and just because you miss it or think it is something else does not make it so. Your internal biases and beliefs only affect how you see the world. Story 62. Half the people you meet have below average intelligence. Half the people you talk to each day are having a below average day. Story 63. Humans are more irrational than they think, sometimes even worse than animals. Story 64. People will look out for themselves no matter what economic or political system they live under. A system based on self-interest that tries to channel that into productive activities is better than one that claims to eliminate self-interest but merely channels it into unproductive behavior. Story 65. We get older. VD. Rage is normal and healthy. Cringe movements are healthy movements related to fascia. We are responsible for our environment. It is impossible to get smarter without failure. Story 66. Feces have an unpleasant odor. Walking into a bathroom and reacting immaturely to the smell will not make it disappear or improve your own scent. Story 67. I think we are not ready for it but need to have a serious discussion on child endangerment. The reality is in every country, culture, and organization dealing with children there is a plethora of people involved. It is not as rare as we imagine, and we need to accept that it is much more common. Otherwise, we can keep pretending it does not happen and then pretend to be surprised when we find out some institution or person has been known for doing this for a decade or more. Story 68. All anger is based on jealousy. Anger is usually caused by seeing someone do something that morality does not allow me to do. Many people are not ready to accept this. Story 69. A lot of people truly do not consider how their words and actions affect others to varying degrees. They are not necessarily narcissists or psychopaths. This is where varying degrees come in. They simply do not think. Empathetic people, in particular, have a hard time with this. However, I believe this realization is healing. It is easy to think people have vendettas against us, and maybe they do, but often it is just ignorance and lack of care. This does not mean we cannot still be hurt. It just means not everything is diabolical. Most of the time, people like that are not thinking about anyone but themselves, and we will be happier when we stop trying to do it for them. Story 70. Some dark human nature facts are that people are purposely hypocritical and don't see a problem with being that way. If that's the case, then they are people you don't want to be around. Freudian slips are real and do reveal who a person is to you. Sometimes, before someone you know does something terrible to you, they have given signs of the person they are, but you overlook it because you give them grace. Sometimes they still do Freudian slips even when they don't know you. Honest people don't do Freudian slips. From what I have seen, people with messed up personalities who wear a mask do. People don't all have the same level of forgiveness. Some lack the ability to forgive even small offenses, and despite profuse apologies, they hold an excessive amount of anger toward you. Their anger is never normal. It's almost demonic. That's the best way I can describe it. People are becoming more troll-like, the actual creature, than before. If someone reminds you of a troll, leave them because they are not good people. People love you until they have known you enough. Once they have seen all aspects of who you are, it's up to them to decide to stay or not. If they decide to stay, make sure they love and respect you. Otherwise, leave if they start showing unrepentant disrespect. If you feel that your friend hates you, leave them and don't try to fix the relationship. They are committed to misunderstanding you. No matter how much they act like they like you, they don't. They still hate you but refuse to leave. Once unrepentant disrespect has entered the relationship, that's your sign to leave. A person who is comfortable being the reason why you're uncomfortable, who doesn't mind making you uncomfortable and even finds pleasure in it, is someone you should avoid. People don't believe you should have basic human rights and will treat you poorly once the opportunity arises. As a woman who likes to be independent before a man decides to abuse you like a narcissist, he looks to see if you have any men in your life that can challenge him, that he wants to impress, or is secretly scared of disappointing. This is not always the case but happens frequently. When a man starts acting unhinged around you and is obsessed with disrespecting you, and you're forced to be around him, get another man from your circle to come talk to him. Make sure the man is the same height or taller, a factor that matters. The man you bring should be a bit intimidating. If this doesn't work, then you should leave because that unhinged man is dangerous. There are 3 types of men. One is easy to talk to during disagreements or serious conversations multiple times. He takes accountability and is reasonable, step 1 of being a decent man. The next type appears easy to talk to at first, but after 1 or 2 times becomes unhinged. Once unhinged, they can't be reasoned with and start mistreating you. In this case, bring a man from your circle who is not easily impressed and slightly intimidating to talk to him. That unhinged fool may stop and try to clean up his act around you. Even then, avoid him because he is dangerous. The third type is unhinged regardless if you bring a man to intimidate him. Run from him. If you are a woman facing a difficult conversation with another man, always bring another man. More and more people have unjustified, demonic levels of hatred and lack empathy. When you see this in a person, run. If you're in a group of friends and they tolerate someone disrespecting or abusing you in their presence and get upset when you defend yourself, leave them because they aren't your friends. Forget the peace. If someone abuses you and expects you to be silent to keep the peace, don't do that. That person will continue and will never be grateful for your silence. People want to do evil against others and get away with it. Some people don't want to take accountability for their actions and hate you for making them. It damages their fragile egos. Some never got over the shame of their parents pointing out their wrong behaviors. They were raised with a lot of negative attention, shame, or pain when they made mistakes. This is one reason they refuse to take accountability and hate you for making them do so. If this happens, leave that person. To be a healthy adult, people must overcome their childhoods, traumatic or not. Otherwise, they remain adults with fragile egos, abusive tendencies, and an inability to take correction. People who don't embrace their shadow sides unknowingly become their shadows. There are good people in this world, but too many bad ones. You only have 2 dysfunctional or traumatic stories to tell before people start seeing you as a problem and get fed up. Once you understand the dark side of human nature, you don't really want to be around people anymore. You might keep 1 or 2 friends, but not many. There is an art to maintaining friendships, even on a deeper level. Once you find it, you'll be seen as a cool and level-headed friend. Heal your inner child because it is behind many dark actions and unhealthy behaviors you have as an adult. Sometimes when you go the extra mile or show kindness to someone, they don't appreciate it and become entitled to your kindness. Sometimes they still hate you. That's why if you notice a friend secretly hates you, leave them. There's no pleasing them. If you are a good person who likes to apologize, that is often seen as weakness and makes you a target for abusers who bully you into submission. Some people wait for an opportunity to join in when others are attacking you to tear you down. Due to how our ancestors communicated and related to each other to survive, many survival techniques are written in our DNA. That's why people tend to behave a certain way in groups. Unfortunately, groups are where narcissists often weaponize your friends against you. Part of the keeping silent to keep the peace behavior comes from early ancestors who did this to survive. Narcissists understand human nature, both dark and good. When you're dealing with one, keep that in mind. Story 71. Collective Purpose. Ukrainians are predominantly united by a common goal with the ultimate incentive of protecting and ensuring the survival of their people, culture, and homeland. They have an overall consensus and are united in their cause, albeit with an unfortunate element of corruption. The Russians are motivated by money, distorted views of history, and increasing false narratives that can only carry them so far and will inevitably result in lowered morale, defections, and hopefully eventual surrender. Ukrainians will be absolutely key in ensuring that the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and the West know how to deal with any future aggression. One can only hope that their future includes being fully integrated with North Atlantic Treaty Organization forces, if not part of the organization itself. Story 72. Humans take everything to its most extreme, usually the worst possible. Diversity, religion, capitalism, socialism, science, business, and so on are great in their infancy and beginnings but usually end up twisted from their initial ideas. Story 73. The instincts that have elevated humankind to resource hoard, fear outsiders, and use violence to settle arguments are now stopping us from moving forward as a species. Almost every human-made problem in the world today can be traced back to one or more of these instincts. Story 74. The capacity for cruelty and violence just needs the right trigger in anyone, and I mean anyone. That is the most unnerving thing for me, truly realizing that. I counter it with knowing the capacity for love and kindness also needs the right trigger. I have seen both. Story 75. I am going to take a different direction. The overwhelming majority of people are kind and will help you. Somehow, the idea of everyone being so awful has permeated social media. The world is full of kind, helpful, friendly people. Truly full. Story 76. As Noah Cross said in Chinatown, I don't blame myself. You see, Mr. Jeet, most people never have to face the fact that at the right time and the right place, they are capable of anything. Story 77. Most people are not really going to care about anything that does not affect them outside of their immediate social circle and everyday life. Story 78. We are inherently sensual and sexual creatures. If we were more open about expressing it like Latin cultures, we would get along better. Story 79. This text is tailored to the Reddit audience. Humans are dogmatic, presumptuous, and illogical. The fact that you do not believe I am God does not make you better or smarter than people who do. You are the same way, just about different things. Everyone is. Story 80. Aldous Huxley said it best, and I will just quote him. The surest way to work up a crusade in favor of some cause is to promise people they will have a chance of maltreating someone. To be able to destroy with good conscience, to behave badly and call your bad behavior righteous indignation. This is the height of psychological luxury, the most delicious of moral treats. Story 81. Our memory is largely a construct. In fact, most of what we experience in the world is a construct. Story 82. People will hold on to incorrect beliefs more tightly even after those beliefs have been conclusively proven false. Story 83. Many issues with human nature today could be resolved over time by removing all lead pipes and leaded airplane fuel still in use. People would become smarter and less aggressive. This change would improve the world over the next few decades. Story 84. The default setting for humans is self-preservation and survival. The idea of helping others, especially people you do not know, is a relatively new concept in the grand scheme of things. If the situation deteriorates severely, we will revert to our survival mode pretty fast. Story 85. What people take issue with is themselves, their own weakness and inability. Their own fear, which they choose and make excuses for. Their own wallowing, which fuels their despair. I realized this long ago. If you pretend, avoid, and push away, then you are trying to avoid accountability. This is the truth. People fear strong opinions because they are afraid of having their delusions shattered. It is your fault if you take issue with that. No one else's. Story 86. All human ideation and technicality conflict with the intrinsic biological nature they consist of. Thoughts are parasites. Story 87. People are naturally hardwired to categorize others who do not resemble them. If Bob looks like you and behaves poorly, your brain will think, Bob is a bad person. If Bob wears a ferret hat and behaves poorly, your brain will think, people who wear ferret hats are bad people. Additionally, your brain is constantly looking for negative individuals to dislike, so efforts to avoid this tendency can only go so far. Story 88. Being intelligent and being a good person have nothing to do with each other. Yes, that includes political beliefs as well. Story 89. We are still stuck in our tribalism and primitive instincts. You see it play out all over the world. That is why we can justify heinous wars and violence. Our ability to paint a group of people as others and fight over resources is the same as fighting over a watering hole when a neighboring tribe comes to take our water, just on a global scale with more elaborate weapons. It is truly disappointing. Story 90. People are not acting intelligently. The part that no one is willing to accept is that yes, that includes you too. Story 91. Humans will never fully get along. It is in our DNA. We will never truly accept someone else, a different race, a person from another country, or someone with different ideas or better things. Humans as a whole are animals in the kingdom, fighting for supremacy no matter how large or small the issues are. Story 92. Monogamy is a social construct. Personally, I am monogamous. I am too lazy for more than one relationship. However, many people are built to maintain more than one romantic relationship. Story 93. We have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. That is why the finished work of Jesus is our only hope of salvation. Story 94. We are not that different from wild monkeys. Just because we wear pants and use long words does not mean most people have gone that far from animals. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.